I won't lie, Vorkath is probably one of my least favorite bosses in the entire game. But like many of you, we need to fill out this collection log, and I finally did so. Today I'm going to be showing you exactly how I did that. So with Vorkath, there are two main methods. You can either go in with a full-on necromancy camp build, and that method, from what I understand, can do anywhere from 245 to 3-minute kills, or you can go absolutely bananas and pull a mage range hybrid setup and pretty much delete the boss before it can do any of its major mechanics. Now, the method that I used once again comes from my friend Glotzfrosh. I'll leave his channel linked in the description below. So pulling up here, the method that I used to learn, as you notice, the preset in the screenshot and the preset that I have are relatively different, as my goal for Vorkath was not to go for the fastest times possible, but just to find the simplest method that still got me low 2-minute kills. And to fully understand that, I'm going to go over the rotation differences first, so that way you can understand the preset differences a little bit easier. So as you see here on the rotation, there is a pre-build at War's Retreat with a bulk spec, there's one stack building, there's getting insight fear stacks, and I do pretty much none of that. I run up to an adrenaline crystal, I stall a tsunami, and I run into the boss instance. Now, when arrows got nerfed a little while ago, so they aren't really used in a pre-build anymore, both when arrows and Dragonbane arrows do the same amount of damage when arrows are fully built up to their maximum number of stacks, which is 15 and a 2% damage per stack. That's where you get the 30%. And in this first part of the rotation, where it's Vorkath essentially phase 1 and 2, I pretty much follow this rotation other than swapping to the Dragonbane arrows. I just always have the D-Bane arrows equipped. Now in this rotation, it's written in here, and this is essentially what I learned, where I escape with the corrupt shot here rather than escaping with the stall on incendiary and diving back in. I find it much easier to escape with the corrupt shot, move over to the side for the stall, and then dive back in and release. And this is what that simplified version looks like as a notation. The next difference in rotation is I am too lazy to go ahead and stall the tsunami on Zamorghiel while Vorkath is in flight. I also change up the ability order a bit here, but I'll go over that a little bit in the example kill. Essentially, I add a corrupt blast before the tendrils or just after that dragon breath up there on the pre-flight, so that way I can go for a wand refresh. And what I'll do after the tendies is I'll go for like a G-Conk wild magic, then do the wand spec and combust. I don't stall the Nami. Sometimes, depending on when Vorkath actually goes up, I've figured out if I need to add an extra ability after that combust in order to hit the Nami and have the Nami actually hit, and then I just do Nami, G-Chain, Omni Power instead of stalling and releasing. I don't do the asphyx there. I kind of just hit a couple bleeds and focus on building to a maximum adrenaline to then go to the afterflight. In the afterflight rotation, I follow pretty much verbatim. Where I differ is I don't ECB after the incendiary shot. I press barricade there and go into kind of my own improv rotation where I build up the rest of the 1 stacks that I need to get a rapid fire, double dark bow, a couple other abilities, just kind of improv from there. And you will see that in the example kill. I'll probably do a couple of example kills just to try and showcase a little bit of variance, because there is variance here. This isn't a 100% set in stone thing, and I think it's a good time to go ahead and bring that up. Of Vorkath, there is variance, and this is a boss that is, I found, rather obnoxious to learn, and I already had a basis in understanding range from learning at Raksha, which did make this a bit easier to learn. But again, this is going to be one of those bosses where it's frustrating to learn. You're going to be dying a lot. It'll take you quite a few hours to fully get the hang of it, depending on how quickly you can learn from a written or a video rotation. And as you do the boss more and more, you'll be able to start learning backup rotations for when things don't quite go your way. You'll be able to sneak diverts in a few other places and whatnot, which I'll talk about kind of after the example kills. But now that you have an understanding of where I kind of differ from this rotation, we can now look at my preset. And as you can see, it's definitely ridiculous looking still, but it is simplified modified compared to the one shown in the screenshot. And that's because I just wanted to bring more food because I kept getting absolutely demolished when Vorkath was returning from flight, and I just wanted the extra food in order to secure kills. And so what I ended up doing was dropping the ECB EOF. I wasn't bringing a book switch. I wasn't bringing Vitpot because I wasn't really on high enough HP to warrant the Vitpot anyways. And I still needed to fit in the full hybrid switch with the ring swap, the physical SGB for range. I do still bring Ring of Death in the preset, even though I despise this item in general. I don't see it getting changed anytime soon. So at a boss as obnoxious as Zamorgul and Vorkath, I kind of just cut my losses and decided to bring it just in case. And if you want to, you could drop the overload in the preset and bring an ECB and go for more of the provided rotation rather than the one that I use if you don't care about proccing rod as much. However, I put the overload in here because I always forget to sip overload at the bank, and then I'd get into an instance and then realize, oh, I only have a minute of overload, I need to go back. And it was cutting into my kills per hour as my PC goes off into space. Okay, which this will now lead me into kind of the actual discussion on the preset on the items I am bringing. This EOF is just a Darkbow EOF. The other necklace I bring is Salve Amulet. For buffs that work at Zamorgul and Vorkath, well, at least on Vorkath, all of these work. Cluster Dragon tasks, Undead Cluster tasks, and the Blue Dragon tasks all will work on Vorkath, and the Helm effect with accuracy and damage will apply to Vorkath. I personally just go for the Dragon Cluster task because I just go to Lania Kia. I think it's more worthwhile to go there. Even though the Blue Dragon tasks are a longer task, I'll just go to Lania Kia because she has less obnoxious tasks in case I don't get a cape notice or anything like that. The Undead Slayer perk works, Genocidal buff works, the Undead Slayer sigil or ability as it's now called does work on Vorkath. The Salve Amulet buff for damage and hit chance works on Vorkath. The only things that don't work for some reason is the Dragon Slayer sigil, and if you have the Dragon Slayer perk, those aren't going to work. But Dragonbane arrows do provide a buff, and my guess is they weren't able to get the game to decide which of the buffs it's actually going to pull from by default if both are on the player's items or something like that, or they didn't want a situation where it is pulling from both and they thought that's probably a little bit too overpowered to have two sigils that you're pressing. But overall, that is what does and what does not work at Vorkath. There might be an item I'm forgetting. There's so many buffs at this boss that I sometimes might let one slip through the cracks. But speaking of gear and perks and all of the buffs and whatnot that work, I'll go ahead and just go over the worn equipment. Full Draco Lich is definitely the play. Vorkath is not poisonable, so you want the gloves for the full buff of the armor set. The perks are C4R5, Impatient 4, Devoted 4, because devoted procs are definitely nice when prayer flicking, especially at a boss where you take as much damage as you do like Vorkath. And then I have Biting 4 Mobile with Genocidal Undead. Biting 4 Mobile can be annoying to go for, but hopefully you guys don't go too dry on it, or you have one from an old armor set or something. I don't know, just figure it out. Grim is definitely going to be best in slot here. Some people bring pocket slots if you want to experiment with pocket slot swaps, like bringing a full scripture for the first portion and adding a couple more Wen spores to get some extra damage. Go for it if you want. I personally can't stand it, so I don't bother. I have the staff equipped here in the preset, so when I load it, I can immediately just stall a Nami real quick and run right into the boss instance. For the quivers, I put a single arrow type in each of the quivers, so that way it is just easy for me to remember. And if I just equip my bow real quick, you can see I have all of them keybound over here, and that just makes my life really easy of knowing which arrow I have equipped at what time, because I can just quickly glance over to this portion of my screen and I can just see the color real quick. I know that green is my Dragonbane, the Wen arrows are in the orange, and the Death Spores are in the black one. Stalker's Ring and Channeler's Ring, I bring these because while you do have perfect accuracy on Vorkath, you still have to deal with Zamorgul, which none of these buffs apply to, and Zamorgul for some reason has relatively high defense, so you don't want to roll in with a Reaver's Ring, you just want to roll in with a style specific ring, so that way you can get some decent accuracy. Salve Amulet, pretty self-explanatory, it does a lot of damage on the things it works on, and the Hybrid Cape is definitely a must-have here. Doing cape swaps sounds really really annoying on a hybrid setup. If you really wanted to for some reason, I'd imagine most people that are attempting this method or attempting to learn this method probably already have the hybrid cape, but honestly, if you're able to learn this method and comprehend it, you're definitely capable of getting your hybrid cape. Just go ahead and do it. And in the rest of the inventory for the magic setup, it is just the staff, the dual wields. I run the Suske armor for the crit chance. If I go here, right click, select effect, you can select the Tuska's Might, assuming that you own the war preset, and then you get an additional 6% crit chance, which having all of the crit chance you can with magic and all of the adren gain is definitely nice. And you don't really need to worry too much about damage on Zamorgul and try and gamble your chance with elite tech on like an Omni refresh. I don't think that'd be worthwhile in the slightest, being most of the damage you're going to do at this boss is with range. Now here I have a death touch brace, and that is because it will work. Reflect damage works on everything, so it's kind of nice. And I think it's going to be better than enhanced wrist wraps, because I don't think using a dragon breath after your combust is really going to be worthwhile too much, especially if you get a combust proc with the dual wields. So just run the death touch brace, makes life a lot easier. Now we bring a physical SGB because there is no way in game to tech in a salve amulet buff with an EOF press. I've tried zero ticking into a salve amulet or with a salve amulet. I even went and got a non-enhanced version of the salve amulet in order to try and zero tick some of these things. None of that works, so what we do is for SGB we just grab the physical weapon. Yes, it's a T92, but a T92 getting a 20% damage buff is going to be a lot stronger than a T100 on a non 20% damage buff. The Nexus here is just for use with Bone Shield. Adrenaline flask, it doesn't have to be a flask. If you're running 4 doses, that's fine. Vuln bomb's pretty self-explanatory. You want to Vuln Vorkath and Zamorgul because 10% damage goes burr. Rune pouches are just my standard rune pouch setup. There's no time runes, no fancy things or alternatives here, just the standard setup. And like I said before, I bring an overload in the preset because I'm very forgetful when it comes to drinking an overload at the bank. And also there's a chance when I load up a bank preset, if I remember to drink the overload, is I will forget to turn on my Grim again when loading back into my normal preset. So I just simplify everything here and just put the overload here, and then whenever it decides to run out, I just go ahead and sip it again. Now, as noted in the screenshot, I do use a certain relic setup that is not exactly standard. I go ahead and pop up the relics here and go over to this loadout. I use Death Ward, Fury of the Small, and Heightened Senses. Death Ward, very nice for Vorkath and Zamorgul. This place will absolutely nuke you with a bunch of chip damage. The minions will hit you like constant 500s to 1500s. Sometimes they hit harder. Vorkath can hit you pretty hard. Zamorgul is constantly tossing out random necro hits that will hit you anywhere from 1k to 10ks. So having any form of damage reduction is going to be very helpful. And Heightened Senses is very nice for the range rotation, and since a majority of the damage you're going to be doing with range, and Heightened Senses is best in slot for range, the Adrenaline Overhead makes it really nice for when you're trying to do dark bows and things like that. This is the go-to choice, even though it does kind of limit magic a smidge. And then for the bank preset, I just pop the Lantidime Incense Sticks, I will pop Powder of Penance, and I pop Powder of Protection, and that's why they're in here. Now, Powder of Protection does not stack with the EOF, but since we're using Salve Amulet, you can scatter both of these at once, and then you get an additional 10% protection on your overhead prayers. So essentially you're taking the same amount of damage, or you have the same amount of damage reduction as if you were wearing an EOF when you're not wearing an EOF. If you're doing any work with Salve Amulet or Zealots or anything that isn't an EOF or a Amulet of Souls, Powder of Protection is a very solid item to use, and they're not nearly as expensive as their Powder of Penance counterpart, so definitely worthwhile to add. And for familiar, I use a Calg Demon because, again, crit chance makes the world go round in this game. Definitely recommend that. I don't bother with the Summoning Renewal Flask. Weapon Poison doesn't work at Vorkath, and Overload is in the presets. So let's go ahead and get into an example kill or two. All right, we have the preset loaded up and ready to go. Now, something that I always forget to do is bind the Necromancy overhead. If I can go ahead and drag it over, there we go. And then when I go to other bosses, I always forget to put it back. But anyways, make sure we're overloaded. Our Grim is on. We have Darkness active. I'll go ahead and refresh that. Get our prayers up. Now, on this rotation, there's a lot going on. I'm not going to be able to just immediately commentate everything that's going on 100% perfectly. So I might leave out a couple things on what I'm doing or just kind of focus on what I'm doing for a second. I'll try and re-explain afterwards exactly what I did and why I did those things after all the example kills are done. Well, with all that being said, let's go ahead and get into an example. So go ahead and install a Nami, grab some Adren. Click on the thing, make sure hard mode's enabled and only one person for the instance. Run over here. Click begin encounter, dive over, release the stall with a corrupt shot, toss our Vuln Bomb, DS with an A-Pot, smoke cloud with your Gricko, SGB into a rapid, Bulg Spec into a snapshot, into a dark bow. Go ahead and one spore the Gricko. Tendies, a piercing shot, escape with the corrupt, stall and run to the side, or stall an incendiary, release with dark bow into a Gricko, and that Gricko will allow the incendiary to hit twice. And after the rapid, snap, SGB, another dark bow into a Gricko. I like to walk over here and drop my sunshine. G-chain or G-conk, G-chain into a Fasoa spec. G-conk, D-breath, and then I go ahead and toss a bleed just before flight, and then 4-tick a smoke cloud in with the tendies. G-conk, wild magic. This differs a little bit from the rotation on screen, but it is what it is. Into a corrupt shot or a combust. Nami, G-chain, Omni power. Another G-conk into a D-breath. Dive over, go to the range swap, equip 1 arrows. Let the auto play out so we get to 3 stacks here. And then before you hit the bulk spec, go ahead and put on your arrows after the rapid. Kind of the normal stuff. Snap. Into a... can't exactly say the words. Do the incendiary, hit the... hit the incendiary, do a barricade so we don't get hit here. And then just kind of... improv here. Make sure you're on 2 stacks. Start up a rapid fire with as many 1 stacks as you can. And then release. Or not release, just hit a bulk spec and gonna re-bulk spec as you need to. Just improv from here. If you want to, you can equip the rod. I think I did because that would have been a lost kill. And as you can see, I got a little bit jumbled up there because I'm trying to explain all of the stuff that's going on. It happens pretty quickly, but when you're actually in the process of doing a kill, it's not too bad. You can pretty much just focus on what you're doing. What I was trying to say there on just before Vorkath died, when you do a rapid, you're pretty much doing the same thing. You're getting a snap, a dark bow, an SGB, and a Gricko out. Usually those are the 4 abilities you're going to be doing. Sometimes the order may vary a little bit, but essentially you're getting those 4 out. And you when spore the Gricko usually. Sometimes I do one sport, sometimes I don't, but it's so you get a free incendiary shot to go into a barricade. But let's go ahead and do another one. So once again, install our Nami. We got a little proc there, so that's nice. Go ahead and start and run in. And once again, begin the encounter, dive over, release our stall with a corrupt shot, toss the Vuln Bomb, DS with the A-Pot, smoke cloud with the Gricko, SGB, re-equip into a rapid, Bulk spec, snapshot, dark bow, one spore our Gricko, tendies with the extra action button or the ballista, pierce shot, escape with the corrupt shot, stall the incendiary, dive in, release with a dark bow, get that Gricko into a rapid, snapshot, SGB spec, another dark bow, a Gricko, into our sunshine, G-conk, G-chain, FSOA spec, toss another Vuln Bomb so you don't have to worry about it later. Get a corrupt blast on flight, target Zamorgil, 4-tick a smoke cloud into your tendies. Eat some food if you need to. And you'll learn the flicks for his overheads. They're kind of annoying, but it's what it is. Nami, into a G chain, into an Omni power. We got a lot of Adren there, which is nice. Target Vorkath again, dive over here, swap to our range swap, let an auto play out so we can get the 4 stacks, so we can bulk spec here into a rapid. Now this is probably the crux of the fight, is getting through here. Let the rapid go out, kind of do your normal stuff here. Now Vorkath didn't die there, so go ahead and target him again. Maybe bulk spec here, grab another Gricko, an ability, and then rapid fire. And as soon as my Cade runs out, that's when I just go ahead and put up the Necromancy Prayer. And if I get to this point, I will Devotion here just to save a bit of damage taken, and just improv from there with whatever your stacks are, with some snapshots and bulk specs, and kind of just play around. Now, the reason Vorkath isn't dying or taking as much damage as probably should happen is I'm on the very beginning of a Slayer task. I don't have Genocidal built up at all, and you'll notice that Vorkath damage will really start to ramp up, and as noted in the rotation, Vorkath should be phasing as you're pressing out the Darkbow spec, and I only really notice that on the tail end of a task. I'll really start to get those where SGB is pretty much just killing Vorkath, and I can get the Darkbow to go on Zamorghiel. So that's just one of those things that you're going to have to learn with the rotation on which abilities to throw on what and kind of how to improv past it. And overall, I think this is a fun method. I view this as very much a cathartic release to destroying a very obnoxious and honestly not well-designed boss. I think this is one of the worst bosses to exist in RuneScape. I can't stand this place, but I had a collection log to complete and a pet to obtain, and so I had to power through it and do it. So I'll go ahead and go over kind of what I do on the rotation anyways. It'll just be a big picture idea. I start the kill, dive in, and the order of operations on start is target cycle, smoke cloud to release the stalled Nami, equip the Bolg, and use a corrupt shot. Then I go ahead and hit Death Swift with my APOT, and then Smoke Cloud again with my Gricko, because when you press Smoke Cloud to release a stall, it does not apply Smoke Cloud to the boss. It just allows you to release your stall. You then have to press it again in order to get the effects of Smoke Cloud on the target. Then the rotation is pretty straightforward from there. A couple of notes: anytime you use a Darkbow EOF, you want to make sure you're pressing a bind or clicking the Salve Amulet again to make sure that you're using it on Vorkath, because 20% damage is a lot. That is something that I was struggling with on the beginning of learning this rotation, is remembering to re-equip my Salve Amulet after Darkbow specs. And also the timing of arrows. When I Spore my Gricko, which by the way, all Wensporing is the common term. You can use this with any equipped arrow. It doesn't have to be Wen arrows, but essentially all you do is have Dragonbane arrows equipped, and then you hit your Gricko input and then the Death Spore. That's all it is. You hit Gricko, Death Spore, just as if you're combo eating food. It is quite literally that simple. And when you Wen Spore to get your 5 Death Spore stacks, that's when you have to make sure to re-equip your Pernix Quiver that has the Jas Dragonbane arrows, or just re-equip your Jas Dragonbane arrows. So that way, when you hit your 10 Ds, it doesn't consume all your Death Spore stacks that you just worked for. So then you hit your Tendrils with the firing of the Ballista. Oh, it actually works still, even though the instance is dead. That's funny. Well, there was nothing to target, but oh, we learn something new every day. But anyways, before I get sidetracked even more, the reason we do that is obviously you want to keep your stacks, and that way when you hit your escape to stall the incendiary, you go back to your Death Spore, stall the incendiary, and run to the side. If you don't click, you can either click to the side, you can go to this side, you can click under yourself, so that way you don't just run in and automatically launch your incendiary. And the reason we do this is the piercing shot will have us on 2 Bolg stacks. We stall the incendiary and release with a Darkbow after we dive in, so it would be a dive input, then Smoke Cloud, and whatever your Darkbow EOF input is. If you want to click Darkbow EOF, go for it. I just have mine keybound right here. and then the input also to activate it is right here. So for me, it is 6 and then Shift X V. Then the dark bow will take stack 3 and 4, giving you a triple dark bow, and then you hit Gricko afterwards. That way the incendiary blows up, takes that 4th stack, procs perfect equilibrium, you get a second incendiary shot. It's a lot of damage. Then the magic portion is pretty straightforward. I honestly would recommend that you do the wand spec earlier and then do like the G chain wild magic, so that way you're still under crit buff. It makes more sense dren wise, and that might be part of the reason why that I've been having a dren struggle sometime on the magic portion of just misreading the entire rotation, but it is what it is. And then when you dive over, say Vorkath is back and you're over here, you're still in your sunshine, you're at max adrenaline. When you dive over here, go to your ring. Here, I'll actually equip the magic stuff so it makes more sense in context. When you dive over and hit your range swap, the thing you need to make sure is you can go ahead and equip your when arrows early, but you do your range swap, wait a tick, then do your arrow input, so that way it's not getting jumbled up, unless you for some reason have your quiver in your entire swap bind or something like that. That'd be kind of weird in my opinion, but I've definitely seen my fair share of weird binds in this game. And you will be on 3 bulk stacks, so what I do is I click on Vorkath to give an auto attack out, which will give you a 4th perfect equilibrium stack, so that way when you hit Gricko, it brings you back to 3, so you can go ahead and equip your Dragonbane arrows and hit bulk spec. You get 2 bulk hits, and it lines up the rapid fire, so you have 0 stacks, which then allows you after rapid fire to be done to do a snapshot and SGB, get out a triple dark bow into a Wenspore Gricko, and it just allows that whole sequence to really line up nicely. So make sure you get that auto out when you swap over to your range setup. If you forget to do it, you can simply do something like add a global cooldown with something like greater dazing shot or maybe a binding shot, and that'll get you back up to 3, no problem. And you shouldn't be on that tight of a timer with your crit buff from the Nami earlier. And then once that whole sequence is done, usually Vorkath will die from the dark bow. Didn't there, so the Gricko got him when I moved over to Zamorghiel. And my ideal rotation for Zamorghiel is pop the incendiary, hit barricade, and then I think I hit like a piercing shot and a bleed or something like that, or do like a dazing shot into a binding shot, so that way I can re-bulk spec, because you might have noticed on the first one my bulk spec actually ran out and I didn't get any triple dark bows. I had to like sneak a spec in there, just improv damage. But essentially the goal after the barricade is to make sure I'm on an ideal number of stacks with bulk, so I just kind of use my basics and play from there, and I get another when Gricko in to get up to 14 stacks. If I'm on 3, I sometimes will just toss a corrupt blast or maybe another greater dazing shot before I hit my rapid fire and do like a double dark bow and another Gricko. Sometimes he dies on double dark bow, sometimes he needs Gricko, sometimes he needs even more persuasion to go down, and at that point if the kill is going long, I will go ahead and use devotion, because that's when like the finger blasts are going to be coming out, the death skulls are coming out. If you go really far into the fight, you might even see a volley, and that is where you just bring Ring of Death to act as a method of securing the kill. And then you grab your chest and then you keep farming out kills and make a bunch of GP in the process. But anyways, I think I have rambled on long enough here on how to do Vorkath. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below, and I will try to answer them if you're confused on any portion of this guide. But I am going to close out the video here. Thank you very much for watching. Your viewership is greatly appreciated. Have a wonderful morning, evening, afternoon, nighttime, whatever it is, wherever you are, and I will see you next time for the next guide. Peace.